It's Friday. And I know that this is really important for me to share um, for myself because I know that there is power in speaking about your struggles, your trauma, you know what I'm saying, the situations you're in the middle of going through, knowing that you are not alone, even though sometimes the mind, you know what I'm saying, can trigger you to feel like you are. Or you are not able to share your truth and it be understood and it be also given the space to be held, whether that is, healing it on your own, whether that is talking with people that you want to talk to. And I want to go ahead and say that this, as I'm kind of like feeling, it's giving very like trigger warnings. So if you're in a weird space, or if you're just not in a space to receive like heavy topics, then I would just suggest like saving this for like another day. But for some reason, I feel this sense of responsibility to myself to share, and reminding myself that my power has always come from my truth. And my personal power has always come from my transparency. And I've also been having to realize that sometimes that transparency or sometimes that conversation for me isn't immediate. It takes some time to integrate. It takes some time to learn. And I want to start this off by saying that if you're my friend or if you've known me for, a while now, I've been talking about like how this summer is representative of my summer of 2019. And summer 2019 for me, so I was 29 going on 30 at the time, in the middle of my Saturn return. It was just a lot of things that were happening around some of the themes that I thought that I had overcome, or some of the themes that I thought I had more of a handle on. Two of the major ones that I feel like are part of like my life situation slash like some of the trauma or some of the dramatics, I'll call them, that I'm overcoming is in regards to addiction. So my alcohol usage or just like drug usage, substance abuse or substance usage. And also when it comes to men, my sexuality, my discomfort in the expression of my sexuality at times, whether that is in the physical sense or even in just like dressing up and just like showing up as my human form, and giving myself the key word that's been showing up, or people have been like extending to me in these moments. And you know how sometimes somebody will be like saying something to you and it's like they're trying to give you advice, but like your spirit can't receive it because you're just in a mental fog. And I feel like the word that's been coming up is grace a lot within the last like couple of, we'll say within the last like 2 to 3 weeks. But I will say that I have been in this space, honestly, of being overwhelmed by all of the changes that are happening in my environment. And honestly, like in some aspects, like self-sabotaging myself because of my fear around the unknown and around the new that is on its way. So a couple of things that have just like been happening for me is like, my core group of friends that I made or have known from college, moved to New York post my graduation from graduate school in order to be like closer to them because I felt like I needed family. I felt like I needed stability, and I felt like my life path has always been very different from that of like my closest friends, growing up from like school or even from my childhood. It always felt like I was being taken elsewhere or being forced to like go through like different stuff alone. And that really used to and still sometimes like bothers me, that I feel like, I want to be like everybody else, or I want to feel, part of like the group, or not like the dib is what we used to call it back in the day. So it's like the ugly person, like the person that has like, so many other things going on that like they're not seen as being equal. Like, how sometimes you have like your friend group and you have like that one person, from my own projections, I'm just saying this is how I've internalized it, that kind of feels like they fit in the group but like don't fit in the group at the same time. It's like how you friends with them. Like I feel like I've internalized that vibration all of my life, especially because of my path just like looking different, and just like me having to go to graduate school and like do things that my friends were able to just like come to New York and start living, which was something that I wanted when I was fresh out of college, fresh out of school. And it was just like I didn't have that, so I forced myself to be in the similar environment. And now that's being shifted as, we're all getting older. Some things have changed. We're getting deeper into our careers and our past and just like the things that we want to do. And it's just moving us all in different directions in the physical sense. And I've been blessed for the last almost 7 years. I'll be celebrating my 7-year anniversary living in this area on the 27th of this month. And it's like for the last, I'll say like 5 years, I've been living in the same neighborhood as my best friends, like walking distance, like get up, sometimes you get like that late night, like what you doing? You know what I'm saying? Pick up my shit, go to their house, hang out for a little bit, can walk home very safe. And that's being broken up right now. And while that sounds very like, I don't know, like even talking about it's like, that sounds silly that like that's bothering you, but it's really affecting me like in a large way. And it's just like also on top of that, because things are starting to get more, busy. And also just like everybody's lives are shifting. It's a really busy time of the year. I'm just not seeing these folks that are really important to me as often as I would like to, you know what I'm saying? Because I already kind of like I've been living by myself for the last 5 years. I can't think of a time where I have been in close quarters with somebody else or in a living situation with somebody else and felt comfortable. And I've just always been very like isolated because of like the waves of my emotions. And I feel like a lot of the times what I'm going through or what I may be feeling is overpowering or overwhelming for other people in my life. So I like to isolate. And it feels like the last couple of months has definitely been me kind of like going back into that shell. I feel like as retrograde season came through, what I was doing was putting a lot of energy into external things as far as just like work, making connections, like doing these lives, like, working for these different companies and stuff like that, working on things in order to keep myself busy. So that way I wasn't thinking about what was happening in my environment. And it was making me really, really overwhelmed, really stressed. I had spoken about a couple of months ago when I went to Orlando, how basically like I was in the middle of a really, tenuous situation. And I can only say that, because I was around people and in living quarters, in close quarters with others who were drinking and stuff like that, it was like I was able to hold tight and hold tough basically until the last day. And doing that made me feel guilty. It was like, I didn't break anything because I come from a background or a history of like getting in trouble with the police, getting in trouble with like others, like really showing my ass and it not making me feel good the next day. So I was going through a lot of that, that wear and tear, and also just like, okay, so having to answer for myself. Why am I not able to socialize with others? Like, what is causing this anxiety when it's around others? Or just me in like social situations. It's like, there's this part of me that wants to go out. There's this part of me that wants to like be around, other people and like be fun, not think about how others are receiving me and all of my, my feelings and my vibration, and, not getting caught up in like what I'm thinking other people are projecting about me being in a space. And sometimes, in those modes where I would be, hanging out, I would try and numb those feelings or numb those thoughts with whatever was kind of like of access to me. And, some days it would be like, the aftermath, like, you feel cruddy. And the older that I get, the more wear and tear these things have on your body. And it was just like, this isn't what you want and this isn't how you feel, but what is it in your mind that is telling you to do this? And I know that old habits die hard. And because of my addictive history, it's just like, that's where my mind went in order to like ease the pain. And I've just been feeling a lot of pain. I've been feeling a lot of overwhelm. I've been feeling a lot of stress just with all of the things that are shifting. It's like, I'm grateful for all of the blessings that have been provided and all the opportunities as far as just like being able to share my, my work, being able to share my healing work, being able to share my story. But then I still get into my head around like, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not seeing it's like this feeling that's inside that's changing so much, but my external surroundings are not necessarily reflecting the changes that I feel inside. And it's like, what's the disconnect? And I've been trying to figure this out so much and searching for that feeling or searching for like that clarity, and trying to look for it in probably the not the most healthy ways. The most recent thing that kind of just like shifted everything for me, and it really took me to a place of me feeling like my lowest low in a really long time, was a trip to Miami. So my first day down there, so mind you, I booked this I promise you, it felt like Spirit told me, like, you need to go to Miami. It was something that had been on my list of places to visit. This was not my first time there, and I actually have to tell this story. But my first time being in Miami was actually like spring 2012, so my senior year spring break. Of course, you know that I was fucked up back then and acting a fool, and I definitely remember, but don't remember that trip. And just for a little bit of additional context, I have a history of blackouts, sober and not sober. Sometimes I remember, especially in my early 20s, maybe like early to mid 20s, I would have these things called, I think, vasovagal receptors, where it's like I would essentially like fuzz out, and would just like pass out, would like faint. So I want you to think about like me drinking so much. And sometimes I don't know if it was because I have this thing where it's like, even with like water or like staying hydrated and stuff like that, as I have water right next to me. I just love to hydrate, you know? So imagine doing that and hydrating too fast, drinking too fast, searching for something. Let's just say my first night at this hotel that I was staying at, it didn't go so well. And I woke up, pause. Let me go back to Cuba because I'm getting a little further ahead. But the last time I was there was back in 2012. Went back in 2013 in order to fly out to Cuba that summer for a research program, or research that I was doing for like my doctoral research. And my trip there was cut short because of me basically dealing with a man who passed himself off as somebody that was a writer, and I was there doing some basic, how would I even describe this? It was like I was in the country doing like, I don't remember what the word is because it's been so long since I've been out of the education system in that capacity, or the research system, but basically like live recordings with authors, with queer authors of color, or with people that are Black, that identify as part of the binary, or the non-binary in this case, and wanted to share their stories, as this was something that was not very prevalent. And of course, my Spanish background, making it through, obviously communicating, but still like learning how to communicate like fully. And one guy basically like called the house, passed himself off as a writer. And of course, I was very trusting. This has always been part of my issue. I don't want to call it an issue. I trust so much, and part of me has grown up feeling very like naive when it comes to wanting to see the best in everybody. And especially when it comes to men, I think because of my growing up and not feeling super connected to men because of this internal battle that I was having with my own sexuality, I just am I give a little bit more than I'm supposed to. But all in all, to say that this resulted in this person actually being a prostitute, and me not having any sort of like idea about it. And part of this was kind of like me, like, socializing, trying to like, have a drink. It was customary, like talk to this man, like get to know him, get to know his story, and then quickly found out that it was something different, and then forced himself upon me. This kind of like started the beginnings of like my spiritual journey, getting more getting more of an understanding of Lukumi, getting more of an understanding of Santeros, and what that looked like, doing like this kind of like is the origination of me doing like spiritual baths. Because I remember there was one that I did for like my eczema, and it completely cleared my skin, along with just like clearing my spirit, and that's what helped me to be extradited from the country and go back to Miami. So I say all this to say that energy, I think, was still looming, and there was an answer that I was still looking for, and also just wanted to blow off some steam. And in my mind, I thought this would be the best place to go. It's by the water, you know what I'm saying, sit by the beach. I really didn't know what else I had planned. I just wanted to go. And my first day down there, let's just say that old habits kind of like showed themselves up. And I woke up in a very uncomfortable situation after a blackout. And it just resulted in me having a lot of those same feelings that were unearthed while I was in Cuba, like resurfacing, and me not necessarily having the space or the time to process them because I had to like shift hotels. And just go through like this process of also just like still being hungover, trying to understand why I am doing this to myself, but also trying to numb the pain at the same time, and also wanting to not like wanting to share with like my friends and my, my family, like I'm going through a situation that's kind of like similar to the assault that I felt like I was going through when I was in Cuba. And it's not all the way the same, but it's just like it evoked a lot of those same feelings. And it just made me very miserable. So I was only in Miami for maybe like 2 days, tops, 2 full days. They were not great. They were not great for my spirit. Like they just made me feel very heavy. And it was just like, God, why did you bring me down here to deal with this? And I booked an earlier flight to come home. I'm still off the face of the map. I'm still not necessarily posting a lot, mainly because like I just feel like everything is just has me like super, super on edge. Everything just has me super, super like, you know what I'm saying? Like scared. Not even it's scared. It's like I'm scared, but I'm not. It's like this sense of I don't want to do anything. Like I don't want to be out. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be bothered. Like half of it is just like being able to see what's happened in my rearview mirror. But then also trying to think about what is it that I need to do for myself, or how do I support myself through these situations that have been kind of like resurfacing themselves. And like talking about it is not my strongest suit all the time. And because what I struggle with a lot of the time is verbalizing my thoughts. Because I get very like, I start to ramble, get very wordy, get very mouthy. And then also just feel like I am overwhelming the people that I may be sharing. Because I'm like, the things that I deal with are not like your lighthearted things. You feel what I'm saying? It's not just like external world pressure. And I'm not saying that my drama or trauma is more than anybody else's. But for me, it feels like I notice when sometimes I'll be sharing and somebody like checks out or somebody's not necessarily like listening fully. And it's also just like, especially when somebody offers to do such, and it's just like I feel that it just isn't received, or people don't know how to necessarily help or necessarily support. And I'm not asking for help. Sometimes I'm just asking for like a listening ear and a hug and, some love, from somebody that it feels good coming from. And I'm still learning who do I trust enough to like allow to be there. But also remembering that I have to be there for myself first. And the way that I am there for myself, the best way is by withdrawing. And some people may say that that's not healthy. But I'm just like, I don't really know what else to do. I may pull a card if I have the energy for it, reading books, writing. Sometimes these things don't help. And it's also just like living in the city. It's just like there's always things that are going on. So I feel this sense of I want to be out and I want to feel, you know what I'm saying, like other, Black queer men, who can socialize, who can not feel super, super, not necessarily shy, because I'm sure there's some sense of shyness, but not feel so triggered when it comes to being around other men. And that's something that I still have not learned. So why I don't keep a very big circle of people around me, because of this. Sometimes it resonates as fear, and sometimes it resonates as like me having to perform in order to be accepted. And I think that this all boils down to a lack of self-acceptance that I have been learning how to share openly, and simultaneously overcome, because I know that there are people that do truly care and do truly care about my well-being. But it's also just like I need to care about my well-being for myself. And it's just like I'm learning what to do, and like going back to what I know has worked as far as like separating myself from distracting things or overwhelming things. But I'm still trying to mobilize it in a sense where I know that I can always tap back into it and I won't go backwards, because there have been plenty of times where I felt like I wouldn't go backwards, and I have. And I feel like, it's kind of like swirling down to the bottom of the drain, the bullshit that I'm in the midst of. And now it's just like, it needs to go. And I'm ready to usher in some fresh new waters. But I also don't necessarily know what those fresh new waters feel like. And I get a little anxious when it comes to me being in water. Like I've been watching a lot of TV, people floating in oceans and shit like that. And even, when I was in the ocean myself, I was very anxious to like go out far. And I think that's because of my stepbrother drowning, me almost drowning as a child. And just like, I don't know, it's like water is the most healing, but it's also the most overwhelming for me. It's very overpowering. So I'm just trying to find a really nice really nice balance right now. But the reason why I even share this is because, you know, I'm still in this place of, it's like I have this part of me who wants to be intimate and wants to like receive somebody in that light and make myself vulnerable enough to do that, because I feel like I'm deserving of it. And also seeing like important people in my life getting engaged, in very serious relationships, able to engage, you know, and just like play in the field with people, and they're able to like not have the same attachments that I feel like I do, or just like the same fears that I do around putting myself in those situations. And it's just been making it very reflective about how, I want to say, the first word that comes up is hurt. The second word that comes up is different. The third word that comes up is how like trauma ridden I am, and how some people look at what I have, or just like how I am. I think I saw a tweet a couple of days ago that was basically like somebody saying how, if you only saying you've had sex 4 times this year, you're not somebody I want to fuck with, because I want somebody with experience. I'm like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, but it's also just like, why do we have to operate in this realm of sex? And why do I also feel pressured to be having sex, or just engaging in that way with others? And it's like, it's something that I want, but it's also something that I feel like I don't feel comfortable enough in myself, or feel comfortable enough with others, and nobody else has really made me feel comfortable that way as an adult, except for maybe like one person I can think about. But it's just like, I feel like I'm behind the ball. And I know that I'm not, but it's like, for me, this isn't what I imagined me being, you know, at this big age dealing with. I thought this would be like some shit in the past, but it's just like trying to figure out what is the next step, aside from opening up about it, because I know that there is power in that. What is the next step in order to lead me into that realm of happiness? And I also know that it begins with me first. So that's why I have just been trying to just really like stay away from anything, because it just feels like everything has me on guard. And here's another fucking message that's coming up. So it's just a very heavy time. And I also just realized, I think maybe yesterday, that like, you know, we're in the midst of Cancer season. My father's a Cancer. My Chiron is in Cancer as well. And Chiron just went retrograde in Aries. So it's like, I have been doing a lot of like this heavy lifting. We were in Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Gemini is my mom's energy. So I feel like these things matter in some sort of way. And I feel like it's probably in my house in some way, but y'all know I don't really know much about that. Not as much as I should, whatever. See, and here I go with the self-deprecating language. This is also another thing where it's just like, I'm working on this in real time. Like, yes, things are great. Yes, I'm evolving. Yes, things are growing, but I'm also just like, what I imagined for my life, it's like, there's so many things that have been actualized, and I have been recognized for, and it does feel good to me. But I feel like I'm at this crossroads again, where I feel like I've been before, where it's like, I'm not necessarily sure what the next step is supposed to look like. And at one point I thought that I did, but now it's like some things have made me take a step back and work through some stuff, which came up in, you know, some readings and stuff like that I've had. And it's like, what I'm really working on is just maintaining, for real, like remembering why I do choose to stay sober or stay out of certain environments that elicit that feeling from me, and that elicit that vibration of FOMO, or that vibration of like being other. And it's like, what are the places and what are the environments that provide this sense of fun? What are the things that provide this sense of me in this reality? Like today, feeling good and feeling seen and feeling supported. And like, one thing that I've noticed about me, that there's some things that I like to do. It was a journal prompt that I had from my therapist. And it was just like social settings that bring fun for me. And I was like, going to restaurants. I do love going out to eat, trying out new food. But sometimes I like going by myself, sit on my phone, read a book, be in my lonesome, you know what I'm saying? Something real cute. I also love going to like, you know, the park, or just like places that are by water, like piers and stuff like that. But the piers are so far away from me here, and I don't necessarily like to leave my house and travel and be around be out in the streets. Like, I've always worn sunglasses, always worn hats, like to just keep myself as like masked as possible. And it's like, in the summertime, especially with the masks and stuff like that, a bitch be sweating. It's like, I don't want to deal with all that. So it's like I'm just trying to find the right happy medium in a life of extremity that I tend to live in, and know that I don't always have to go to extremes. And as I'm like, another thing that happened, like I got back from Miami, and I was in the emergency room because one of my, and you can actually still see potentially, you see the line. I had to get this ring cut off of my finger and ended up in the emergency room late on a Monday evening. It was actually the day of my grandmother's birthday. Rest their spirit, rest her spirit. I ended up in the hospital at midnight, trying to just like get the feeling back in my hand because my whole finger was like swollen. So it's just been a lot of random shit that's going on, and I've just been trying to stay centered. So this is why I just decided, because I don't want to tell this story over and over and over again. So if anybody ends up seeing this, you can understand where I'm coming from right now and why I am choosing to just like, not necessarily isolate, but just like take some space for myself, as I am going through a lot of difficult changes and difficult transformation. And it's just like, financially, let's just say that trip, especially having to like shift locations and do stuff, it just ended up being a lot more than I anticipated for it to be. So grateful to God, to the Holy Spirit, that I did have the funds to be able to like make things work. But it's just like I'm just trying to move in silence as much as I can, because things are about to get really crazy again. And I've just been needing this time to really just be in my little Cancer crab shell. But I do know that I pulled these cards the other day, and 10 of Cups, Queen of Cups, Queen of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, 6 of Pentacles. So it's like, I know that there is power in this for me right now, and there is a change that's on the forefront. I also pulled the 3 of Pentacles today for myself, and the Moon card is right here subconsciously, like upside down. So it's just like, letting off these things with, the people, because it's like I care about people so much, and I have to also care about myself just as much. But I also know that part of where I found my most shining moments has been in my transparency about the reality that I am in. And I have been really on a roller coaster of sadness since May. And I think that I've been doing a good job at masking it, but I have been completely overwhelmed. And I'm not necessarily asking for help. I'm just asking for a little bit of grace from others, as I am in this format of like reinvention, and this reinvention of like who I actually see myself becoming, not who I am right now. And I'm figuring out like what aspects of me and like the life that I thought of, because I think that I've been having a little bit of dysphoria. Around recognizing that like I have been on this earth for almost 32 years. Even though it's felt like this, like I can remember some things from me being a teenager, you know what I'm saying? And it feels like that's a life that's not so far off, but it is. And recognizing like I'm here today, and like my life on this planet, my life on this earth, my life in this lifetime is only going to become more rooted and grounded by the work that I am doing today, in order to make sure that future self is taken care of. And it's like, what things need to be cut out in order for me to sustain and also grow and expand in the way that I have been praying for myself, you know what I'm saying, for years. And it's like, I have to really sit and figure out what's missing, but also what has stayed the same. And I think that's the most important thing for me to like recognize what has stayed the same that has always brought me back home. And how can I remind myself that I'm still safe and I was taken care of, and you know what I'm saying? Like, money is in circulation. It will always come back. Healing is a process, and time heals all wounds is what I have been telling myself over and over and over again. But I say all this to say that anybody that has been assaulted, anybody that has dealt with sexual frustration, or just like not being understood sexually, or feeling closed off from that sexual aspect of themselves, or feeling like they can't share themselves openly, I'm right there with you. Even as I talk about this, I'm starting to get hot, because I'm like, it's a very touchy subject for me. And also people who, take off their clothes in these situations, and they're thinking about what the other person is thinking about their body. And you know what I'm saying, that or even just like when you're out at the beach, like, are people looking at me being fat? Like, are people looking at, you know, the pudge that I have at the bottom of my stomach? Like, am I sexy? Am I looked at as desirable? These are things that have been like going through my mind. And it's just like, when is my time coming, God? When is my time coming? Is my time here already? Is this what it was supposed to be? I know that this can't be it. And I know that there's more. But it's just all about hanging in the road. And the soul card comes up in reverse. And this is where I'm going to leave us off. And this is all about just allowing myself to know that healing is a process. And it's all about tapping into the optimistic, and speaking life over the future. And sometimes when you can't do it, allowing other people's energy to pour into you, and not, I don't know, I just have to remind myself that I will not go anywhere if I'm in a hole by myself. Sometimes I have to reach my hand out and ask for assistance to pull me up out of a rut. And I don't want to say I'm in a rut right now, but I'm in a tough place. This happens consistently around this time of the year, and I have to honor that. In my dead, you know what I'm saying? This death phase is all about me recognizing that I have released, and I am releasing. The more that I show up, it's like, I don't know who I want to become. All I know is that I want to continue to share my truth, and that be what I am known for. And this is my truth. I'm still working through some addictive habits and some addictive mentalities. I'm still working on knowing that I can have sex and not be looked at as going to hell, or that my body is disgusting, and I can engage in that aspect of myself, but also have some respect for the way that I choose to carry myself with the same sex or even the opposite sex, and know that I don't need to perform for anybody. I am good enough as I am. And there are people out there that do and will accept me as I am and want to enhance that, as I do the same alongside them. And also just like, you know, my mistakes don't make me who I am. It's my triumphs and the things that I overcome that set the tone. And I don't know if anybody needs to hear this, and if you get to the end of this, thank you. But your girl, your boy, you know what I'm saying, your man's, he's doing what he can. And I don't know. I've been wanting to talk about this for days, but I just haven't had the energy. And I hope that this falls on somebody's ears, on somebody's spirit. It will, excuse me. It will. And yeah. And also, I know that somebody's probably gonna be like, I'm gonna shoot you a text. Like, you don't have to. Like, please don't feel obligated. I'm still in cocoon mode. But if you feel so obligated to, I receive the love. And I'm trying to not shut out myself from receiving love from people that are new to my reality or new to my lifetime. Because that is also another thing. I can't rely on the people that have always been there to always be there, even though they will. I still have to allow myself to receive the same amount of love and know that it matters just as much as somebody that's been in my life for a long period of time. So yeah, thank you for listening. I guess this is a G-spot about, you know, I'm coming out again and just trying to, I don't know, this new era, she's doing a lot. The Super Saiyan era is not giving what I thought she was going to give, but I know that there's got to be something on the other side of this. And I hope that, I don't know, this story resonates with somebody. Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you need to cleanse yourself after this, I feel you. And yeah, talk soon.